Bow, 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 bow. Good morning, and here we are on Thursday morning. Good morning, it's come together. Hi.
Boing. I had to play my keys.
That was the dumbest song I think I've ever sang on the fly. Hey, I know who you are. Good morning.
Hi.
Welcome to the We're Better When We Come Together
Morning show.
with Dr. Terry Murphy.
And Chris Murphy.
That's the two of us, and we are here with you. How are you? Hello.
Well, hi. How's life? How's things?
Long time no see.
Thursday.
Yeah.
We made it to Thursday. It's Thursday. What are you doing? What's everybody up to?
I'm drinking because it's Thirsty Thursday.
Ah. What else are you thirsty for? We
Water.
made lots of jokes this morning about the dove. Morning show. We made a lot of jokes about the dove on our front porch today. We have basically a youth hostel for birds. So no one lives there really, but they all come and hang for a while,
Yeah.
have some babies, and then leave.
Yep. They spend a little bit of time with us. They get a little annoyed with us when we're out in the mornings and they're trying to do their little dove things.
Yeah.
And we're just sitting around, sipping coffee,
Just like-
laughing, looking at them. Maybe the kids get a little too close sometimes every now and then.
Sure.
Gotta get
And then there's that
get a good
cat,
look.
Samantha, that lives down the street from us that comes and tries to crawl the what do you call that thing? A post?
Yeah, the little column
Column. It's a
in our
column.
house, yeah.
Called a column.
So that's what we do in the mornings. So this morning, I have to tell you this. We were laughing so much in the 6 o'clock hour on our front porch that
6
I got
a.m.
yes, that I got to the point where I couldn't laugh as hard as I wanted to because my face and my energy couldn't keep up with how you were bringing the funny this morning. So I just have to say, you got to space out the comedy because
Right.
at some point, like when you get ready to do the crescendo, punchline, I'm not going to have the energy for it because I'm exhausted from all the other funny as well.
Right.
So what I'm really saying is you bring it at such a high level consistently that I can't laugh consistently as I want to.
Yes. Well, I just have one
Morning.
switch and it's just on.
It's just hilarity.
And then it's beyond my control how much you laugh.
True. That is true. Yeah. I won't hold you to that.
Yeah.
How are you?
How are you feeling today? Like, let's do our check-in.
Yeah.
Would you share with everybody a little bit about what check-ins look like? For
Absolutely. So if you've been with us before, you know what to expect. If you haven't, we do a check-in every day, Monday through Friday, where we simply think of, we close our eyes, we think, how are we doing today? And just put a number to it, 1 through 10. 1 being, I don't feel good at all. 10 being, I have rarely felt better. And so 1 through 10. And if numbers don't work for you, feel free to put an emoji in there. If emojis and numbers don't work for you, give us a word or a phrase. We just wanted to see what you're feeling. But we like to do this every day just to check in with ourselves, in our bodies, in our emotions, in our mental state, and even our spiritual state. Let's just say that too. And just see how we are. So how are you? Put a number in the chat box down below. Do they call it chat boxes anymore? In the comments down below.
I literally don't know what that means.
Put a comment in, but I'd love to check in with you. How are you doing?
I don't know yet. Yesterday I wasn't feeling really good. I went to bed at like 4:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah?
Accurate?
I mean, I don't know that you fell asleep
I
for the
didn't say I
night
fell
then,
asleep.
but yes,
I said
you
I
went
went
to
to
bed.
bed.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
So, and I don't know. I don't know what it is that I'm feeling. I can't decide if it's my period or if it's because
Right.
I'm stressed or maybe a little tired or something. I'm never quite completely 100% sure. But what I do know is that my body needs some care, some rest. Even though I feel like we do a really good job of caring for ourselves, my body's saying it needs a little bit more.
Sure.
So that's what I'm going to do. And I don't know. I don't really have a number. Maybe like a question mark emoji.
I like that. Yeah,
And maybe I'll find out more when I
Yeah.
hang out with me.
I like that.
My friend Ashley Tribute says, I'm going to paraphrase her. She works a lot. She's a fine artist, and a lot of her work is about body acceptance, like radical self-love. And she says, you got to spend time with yourself to love yourself. Just like anybody else, any relationship. How do you develop a deeper relationship with someone? You spend time with them. And the same thing is true for us. Like you really do have to spend quality time with yourself, your true self, to be able to really love yourself well. And so awareness, one of the reasons that we do our check-ins is for you to develop a deeper relationship with yourself, an accepting, loving, respectful relationship. And I find that a lot of us, and I'm saying we, us, have fraught relationships with ourselves.
Truth.
Yeah.
On that note, every morning when I start out my morning pages, my journaling in the morning, I often don't know what to say to start out with. So
do you talk to your morning pages?
A little bit. But I have a thing that I say every morning in the first 2 lines, just to get myself writing. So it's every morning I write the same thing just to get my hand moving, and then usually I can go from there. But I say, good morning, you, or good morning, me, it's good to see you.
Oh, you write to yourself?
Yeah, I just say, good morning, me, it's good to see you. And I do that just to kind of get going, but then also a little bit acknowledgement that like, however I show up on the page, it's okay. And again, this is my journal that nobody sees, and it's designed to be so. So I can write just, I'm not feeling good, or I feel great, and anything in between, whatever is coming up for me. I just let anything that pops in my head be okay to put on the journal.
Is it fun to have such a deep voice?
It is a little bit. It is a little bit. Yeah.
This is my deep voice.
I like it.
Thank you.
I like it a lot.
I'm just marveling at that. Isn't it funny? Our voices are like fingerprints. Mm-hmm. They're really unique. Like our diction and the way that our voice literally sounds, the way that we vocalize is completely unique too.
Yeah. It is a little disconcerting sometimes when, you know how in adolescence, a lot of voices sound similar. Like when I hear a kid playing across the neighborhood and it kind of sounds like my daughter, but my daughter's inside and I know that. And I'm like, how did she get way over there? Like my brain is trying to do the gymnastics of how did they get? Yeah, that's interesting sometimes. But yeah, I do like that. I'm reading. We've got a couple numbers coming in. Those of you on Facebook or on Instagram, if you haven't put in your number, we're putting those in now, 1 through 10. How you feeling? I see 7.7. That's nice. A 4, and it looks like that still trying to get back to normal since the loss of your father.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Yeah, I hear that. I appreciate you using this space to feel like it was safe to write that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Today for me, this is going to sound really dorky, but I woke up for whatever reason, I'm not sure, at like 3:55 this morning, and I thought to myself, ooh, okay, gotcha, thank you. I woke up this morning at like 5 minutes until 4 a.m. And I am kind of addicted to the gamification of my watch telling me all my stand goals. And so I realized that like if I put my watch on now, if I put my watch on now and go get some water in the kitchen and then come back, I'll get a stand goal for 3 a.m. or the 3 o'clock hour. And if I stand up just a little bit longer, I can go ahead and get my stand goal for 4 a.m. too. Just because. This is what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense.
More than 12 in a day?
No, but I want to get to 12 as soon as I can.
And then you can lay down?
And then I can relax the rest of the day.
Or you could just lay down at 3 a.m.
Yeah, I could do that. But what I'm saying is, usually I'm asleep until like 5:45, 6 a.m.
So it's kind of like, why not? Why not?
Exactly. So right now, I've already hit 5 stand goals, and I feel like that I'm just.
One. I don't even have one.
See, I feel like I'm winning the game. I feel like I'm winning the game, and that is why I'm a nerd when it comes to my watch. And there are times where I'm like,
nerd, like it's a bad.
I don't want to get out of this bed, or I don't want to stand up when I'm doing this important thing, but I gotta get my stand goal. So I'm a little. Like, it controls my life a little bit. I'll just be honest with everybody here.
Do you want it to? Are you happy with that?
I'm really happy when I hit that 12 hours that I've stood today. Okay. So, anywho, I'm really excited about that. But regardless of that, I feel you're distracting me all over the place this morning. I feel good. I'm at like I'm going to say 7.7, just like somebody else in the comments said.
That's high.
Yeah, feeling good this morning. I mean, I spent like an hour listening to you on the front porch this morning.
A 5.
And you had me laughing the whole time.
I'm like a 5.
So you had me rolling laughing at your 5.
5 is good for me.
Yeah,
that's perfectly neutral.
Well.
I do love a good watch goal, but I get so obsessed that it's actually not helpful. I don't track my calories. It's not good for me. Like, I just can't do any of those things.
Yeah.
If I want to have like a good relationship with my body and with food and myself.
I found that I need a little outside motivation in order to have that healthy relationship with my body. So
Gretchen Rubin in the 4 tendencies, not the 4 agreements, but the 4 tendencies that she talks about, like how you find your motivation that's already hardwired in. I am a fundamentally fully self-motivated person. If I set a goal, I don't need any outside support to help me get there. Like, the motor is inside. The call's coming from within the house.
Yeah.
For you, and we've talked about this, you're the type of person who does need like a coach or like a group environment where there's accountability, and the motivation comes from outside of you in conjunction with your inner motivation. Right. Like you don't just like not have a longing at all to do that. You do have a longing, to accomplish certain things, but it takes a minute.
I've gotten to the point where I'm okay with the idea that I need outside help.
Yeah.
But for the majority of my life, I was not okay with the fact that I needed help. And then would try to do it on my own. And then I would feel bad when I didn't accomplish the goal. And so I'm just fully like, right now where I'm at, I'm fully accepting that like the more coaches or teams that I have around me or partners that I have, the more success I'm going to have. And I really, I appreciate that about myself. Again, no longer going to beat myself up about that. I would love to be self-motivated like you are, but just not quite there.
Well, you just have to up your naps. And,
that is true. I don't have as many.
And pop that watch off and you'll be right where I am. Yeah. That's really good. Okay, so what we've been talking about is Attachment Week. We've been talking about secure attachment, insecure attachment, and what all of this means. So on Monday, we defined attachment. We gave you history on what that is. On Tuesday, we started to break down that there are secure and insecure attachment styles that develop in childhood that form the template for the way that you engage in relationships as an adult. And then yesterday, we talked more about the 3 different forms of insecure attachment and wrapped that piece up by just saying that there's no good sort of like better way to show up as your attachment style. Like it doesn't make you a better person if you're securely attached. It doesn't mean that you automatically are just perfectly well adjusted with secure attachment and that everyone with insecure attachment like has issues or any of that. What it does tell us though is that you had some unmet needs if you developed insecure attachment. That's really what that means, that some of your needs in childhood growing up weren't met. Now, another way that can happen, that insecure attachment happens, is that it's not about your caregivers, but it's about the environment that you're born into. Yeah. That if you're born in an environment where it's not safe for you, then you can develop insecure attachment too. So you can have a really great relationship with your family, but if you're growing up in war and racism and oppression, if your gender identity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, those sort of things come into play, then you can also develop insecure attachment. So we are not going to be blaming people for this sort of attachment strategy that you use in adulthood. It's not indicative of who you are. Yeah. But what we do want to know is, so what do you do based on the attachment style or attachment strategy that you have, that you grew up with? What does it mean? How does that show up in relationships? So go check out those earlier videos if you want to see anything. They're all on IGTV and they're all on Facebook. And we're going to work to have this week also uploaded on YouTube at some point. Yeah. We'll have to figure out what that really looks like. So today what I wanted to talk about is the move that you end up taking in adulthood when you find yourself in a relationship. And that is going to be connected to your attachment strategy or your attachment style. So let me be clear. The research talks about attachment style because we used to think that that was just your style. That whatever your attachment is in childhood is going to be the way it is through the rest of your life, that it was much more entrenched and pretty rigid framework. because it has everything to do with your perception. We call that an internal working model of self and other. An internal working model just means this is my operating system. Just like your computer has an operating system that informs everything what to do and how to do it, your internal working model is the way that you perceive yourself and others in the world, right? So how I perceive other people to be. Have you ever been around someone that just always assumes the best in people and really believes it and seems pretty calm in their body, pretty grounded, that's not toxic positivity, that is truly able to hold good and bad, all the things, and stay pretty regulated, ask for help when they need it, that kind of thing. This is what we're talking about. You trust that other people are trustworthy and that you can ask for help. You can also set boundaries. You get to have an autonomous self. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about. So your internal working model is going to be how you then behave. So your behavior is the last thing that unfolds, which is why we're talking about it last. So a lot of times what we do when there's something going on that we don't love, what do we try to fix first? Behavior.
Yeah.
I don't like it when you do that. You need to use a different tone with me.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, interesting, I wonder why he's using that tone. He must be getting some sort of message inside that has like put his operating system targeting me as like a threat, so what's going on? So what happens then with your attachment strategy is whether you have secure attachment or one of the three forms of insecure attachment, you're going to show up in only two different moves, right? Now, what the difference is going to be, first we need to know our move. The difference is going to be when you start to ask yourself the question about how I perceive my partner and myself. That's going to be super connected to your attachment strategy. But your move is your move, because as human beings, we just have a limited number of responses until I learn how to be invisible for real or fly, which I can't wait for one of those. But until then, until we have superpowers, what we do have is two very distinct ways that we protect ourselves. And that's pursue or withdraw. And if you don't know what your move is, you can go find out more on my website, and there's a free quiz that you can take there to figure out what your move is, terrymurphy.com, just right at the top of the page. So pursue and withdraw is something we're going to talk about in depth next week. So I'm not going to really break down what that looks like in your pattern right this moment. What I am going to talk about is how that's showing up for you in a more general sort of sense. So more of an intro and how it's attached to your attachment strategy. Questions, thoughts, things you want to say so far before I talk a little bit more about that?
No, I think it's great. And again, just wanted to reiterate that oftentimes we look outside of ourselves to figure out what's going on before we can get a sense of what's going inside us. That's not everybody. That's often me. I'm looking around.
Yeah, I think we all do that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm looking around at
How
other
safe
people,
am I?
how they act, how they interact, what their responses are, to kind of get a gauge on what's acceptable and what's not. And then I can kind of get a sense of where I fall in that continuum.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say out loud that oftentimes, even though we talk a lot about looking inside, that sometimes if you're having difficulty with that, then maybe try to reverse it a little bit, or figure out that to look elsewhere first to get a sense of what's going on. So then we can look inside.
You're saying to look elsewhere first?
If that is something that needs to happen, like if you're having a hard time kind of getting a grasp on what a lot of these concepts are, which I had a hard time when I was first learning it. Sometimes it's easier to look outside and to get a sense of what other people are doing and go, oh, I see, that's pursuing, or oh, I see kind of the difference in
I see what you're saying.
Anxiety or
modeling.
Yes. I see how other people model it, so then I can kind of see where I fall in that.
Frantically cleaning the house to avoid talking about the thing is my strategy. Yeah. Yeah, I do. When I call it angry cleans. When I start like angrily cleaning a thing, that's probably terrifying to you, because it's actually pretty bad for me at that point. Yeah. Or I take on like an impossible work project. Like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to solve homelessness. I'm going to do it this week. Like, there's this like ridiculous, for me, urge then, like, I can't deal with the gravity of all that I feel inside. And so I need something that seems as big on the outside of me to fix that when I can't fix this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know. Yeah, go ahead. You were about to say
No, I was
something.
just going to say, and I appreciate what Laura was saying as well about looking inward before fixing the behavior. Again, the thing that I feel like is the way that I do things is I need to look outwards, kind of observe everybody else. Then I can kind of get a sense of where I am. So then look inwards, and then I can work on fixing my behavior. But for whatever reason, I need it modeled a bit before I can then move on. So.
And the best news ever is when you are doing the thing, it can just feel like literally the best option and be like, this is it. This is going to be the thing. But sometimes if you really tune in, there's like the little voice inside going, is this really what you want to be doing? And you're like, shh. So that little voice is like a little bit of yourself knowing what it needs. Okay, so let me roll on back. Okay, so remember when we talked about attachment that you've got two dimensions, anxiety and avoidance. Secure attachment is the only type that's low in both, but when you get triggered, they're gonna move. And you're gonna have an affinity based on either your personality, your temperament, the family that you grew up in, your current situation, your current relationship, that is gonna cause you to protect yourself. If you cannot protect yourself, right, then it's very difficult for you to be able to regulate yourself. Protection and regulation are flip sides of the same coin.
Love
Your
that
favorite
phrase. Yeah.
So it's not a good thing if you never pursue or withdraw. That's not actually a healthy thing. It's just like saying, I've never had to run a temperature before. Well, you know what? You're about to die, Jill. Okay? Because if you can't run a fever, how are you going to kill the infections inside? Our nervous systems, our biology around attachment, around love, around relationship does the same thing that your body does to fight infection. Your protective strategy is your defense. You have to have a defense. Because I think that God, this is my personal belief system, I think that God created us with the ability to care for ourselves, knowing that the world is not actually perfectly safe. And so we're not going to idealize here or use toxic positivity to bypass what is actually a beautiful thing. There is nothing wrong with you when you pursue and when you withdraw in relationship. All that this means is you have two different ways that your body regulates your nervous system. So just like running a fever. So let's talk about this, right? So let's talk about pursuit. If you pursue, all that means is what your nervous system does is it increases the volume of your distress. It turns it up. We need to send a louder signal. No one got our bat signal, so we need to make it audible now. Or we need to do it again. And so the pressure goes up inside of you and you are driven. Your body is going to move you to engage, to bring something up, to name a problem, to want to have a discussion, to send a strongly worded email, to comment on a thing. Like that you only feel better after something is addressed. It's not because you love conflict and drama and you go around looking for that. It just means that this is the defense that your body feels most effectively addresses your distress. It's, hand me your hands again for the window of tolerance.
Here we go.
So in the window of tolerance, when I'm here, the way I get back in my window is turning the volume up, addressing things. Thank you. Getting critical, blaming are like the behavioral component of what actually inside is distress. Anxiety goes high. Okay? So to reduce the anxiety, we need to talk it out. Here's an example. I'll just give an example from our life. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Not a minor one. I can give a minor example.
Deal.
We just had a disagreement about something. Do you remember what it was?
I don't even remember it now.
This is common. Have you ever had this before? If you wanted a screenshot of that, here, put your hands out and he can do it again. So when we're in here, is this good, Laura? Did you get it? Okay, great. Yeah, we had a fight. Let me just talk about one that we had a long time ago. I just actually talked about this. So when we really cycle, when we really get into it, Chris does this thing where he breathes out as a way to regulate himself. Like that. Oh, I feel it now.
Yeah.
Don't do it again. So he can do that even when we are perfectly getting along. And what happens in my nervous system, because he does that when we do fight, in the moment right before he withdraws, which is his move. I pursue, he withdraws in this relationship. In the moment right before he emotionally shuts down, he usually lets that breath out in that way, like a frustrated huff, which is not the same thing as like, relaxation, or it's so good to see you. It's like a angry huff.
Yeah.
But he isn't telling me, because we'll talk about withdrawing in a moment. He's not necessarily saying to me what's going on. So what happens in my body, even when he just did it today, in this moment, like 1 second ago, I start to feel heat in my chest. So the first thing I notice is my body physically responds to the threat.
Mm-hmm.
He's not trying to threaten me, because guess what? Your body does not give any F's about intentions. It doesn't matter. It only cares about impact, right? So in this moment, the way it impacts my body is threat. Alarm bells go off inside of me.
Yep.
And the story I get is, oh, I guess he's upset with me about something. And what a jerk. He hasn't even told me what it is, right? That's my perception. If we're not in a good place, or if it's that noise, because in the past, we weren't in a good place. So guess what your brain does? It takes a little highlighter and it's like highlights it in the color yellow. Yellow means, hey, this is one of those times where you're about to get abandoned.
Yeah.
Right? This is one of those times where he doesn't care about you. This is one of those times where he's about to withdraw. So we're going to file any breath that he makes like that under rejection and abandonment.
Right.
You see how this works? So as a pursuer in my body, P.S. by the way, we know from research, James Gross does research on emotional processing, how fast emotion moves through your body. So wow, this is so many quotes. But Viktor Frankl, in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, says between stimulus and response is a space, right? And that space is everything about our behavior. That's what has to change, is that space needs to widen so that you actually have choices. Here's the issue, though. Between stimulus and response is 0.6 of a second. From the moment he breathes to when I go, what the F is wrong with you, is half a second. Mm-hmm. Half of a second. So when we're talking about increasing that space, do you see like why therapy can feel tricky? Because you have to catch it in the moment, if you can, and then give yourself time to have a different story. So this is where your attachment strategy comes in. If I'm securely attached, and I believe Chris is safe and I'm safe, and that I trust that he wants me, wants to be connected to me, he huffs like that, it still triggers my body because we really have fought. Here's the difference. There's a seesaw moment inside once I have healed secure attachment. Thank you, Laura, for that. Once I've got healed secure, what that means is when he huffs like that, I can feel both options in my body at the same time. I still get triggered, but here's the thought. It could be that he's upset with me, or, and this is security, something else may be going on and I might not have all the information. And then I have a choice. Where do I lean? Do I lean into my pissed offness if I'm having a bad day? Probably. But if I've got enough margins, enough sort of goodwill between the two of us, and I'm securely attached in that moment, so we've not been like fighting all the time, but it really is like that, then I could maybe say, hey, I heard that breath, which you know for me is a trigger. Mm-hmm. I'm just kind of curious, are we good? Or should I know something that's going on? Because I have a little bit of fear running through my nervous system right now that we're fighting and I didn't know.
Pause. So she has now done the work that she needs to do coming to this situation.
And that's a healthy pursuer. I'm still triggered and I'm probably still angry and scared.
Yep.
By the way, your emotions are not a problem. Securely attached people get pissed. Securely attached people are scared. The difference is, what do we do with those emotions?
Exactly. So she has done the work of hearing from the stimulus, something triggered her from what she heard me do. And then her response was, is something going on? Not in this moment.
I know exactly what this is.
Hey, you jerk. Why you huffing out? Why you doing that thing now? You know, whatever it may be. She has asked the question. So now I have the exact same responsibility. Now I, in our cycle, and now I'm hearing something that is the stimulus, which is her calling me out on something. Now, it depends on our connection and all that as to how I accept what she's saying. So she first heard the huff, asked me what was going on, and now I have heard
That's going to trigger him.
Yeah, heard her issue, and it triggers me, so now I have a response. So now I can say something like, nothing.
Which would be a withdrawing response. And can we pause and come back
Yep.
to this half of the
Absolutely.
conversation?
Yes, totally.
I love what you just added.
Yeah.
So do you see the difference? All pursuing is not the same. If I'm securely attached and a pursuer, then I might be able to have enough space to give Chris the benefit of the doubt. My partner gets the benefit of the doubt. I also give myself the benefit of the doubt. If you're a pursuer, you're probably 10 times harder on yourself than you even are on anybody else. I should have said it nicer. Let me wait until I can figure out a time that's not going to trigger him. Like you try to control, both partners do, but in two different ways. So anxiety's high. I want to bring it down by addressing things, by bringing things up, by maybe even pointing out what he did that triggered me inside, thinking that if I can help him connect the dots between what he did and how I'm feeling, he'll make a different choice. But do you see my focus is still on him and not really on just letting him into my experience?
Yeah.
I'm afraid. Here's the story I'm telling myself. And then checking in, does that feel accurate? So that's pursuing. And you can be securely attached and pursue. You can be insecurely attached and pursue. If you're insecurely attached and pursuing, sometimes the intensity goes up. So think about this. The most common attachment strategy with pursuing, if it's insecure, is anxious ambivalent. Because remember that you live, your baseline isn't calm. Your baseline tends to be a bit more anxious, a bit more hypervigilant. It's harder to trust that other people want the best for you. It's like you feel like you've got to contort yourself, in some sort of way to be acceptable to the other person. You need constant reassurance. So the difference would be here. Everything happens the same. I say to him, are you upset with me? Probably I don't talk about my inner world if I'm insecurely attached and pursuing. So I don't tell you what's happening. Instead, I might say, what was that huff about?
Right.
I know exactly what that huff is. You know what that huff means, right? You know what it means, don't you?
Yeah.
So then
nothing.
it comes across a bit sharper. And then what happens, though, is say that he says sorry, offers me comfort. Here, do that for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like,
I don't think that you mean that. Do you really understand what it does to me? Do you really get it? So what happens if you're insecurely attached, any of the types, is it's really hard to take in reassurance. The thing you want the most is that reassurance, but you can't quite trust it. There's this region of your brain that looks like a horseshoe that sits around your amygdala called the anterior cingulate, and its whole job is just to call bullshit on everything. It's not its whole job, but it's one of its jobs, and it's one of my favorite things because I feel like I strongly relate to the anterior cingulate. I think there's some bullshit here. Let's go explore. So the anterior cingulate lights up in your brain when there's any sort of mistrust. And mistrust also doesn't make you a bad person. What it tells me is you've had pain in a relational way that causes you not to be able to take in comfort and care from others.
So you've had experiences in your life that you can now relate this situation to that seems similar. And so you're tying in loose ends, you're listening for those clues, and you're thinking, oh, here's one of those situations where this may not be okay.
Yep, exactly. So let's actually, let's do it. Okay, so let's reverse it. So now we're talking about withdrawing, right? And so withdrawing, you can be secure or insecurely attached. But what happens if you withdraw is that your avoidance tends to be higher and your anxiety actually stays low. And the goal is to keep this anxiety low. So if this one has to be steady, the only way to reduce pressure is to increase your avoidance, right? Because these have to balance out all the time. So you have to increase your avoidance. So when there's any sort of distress in the area, you're like, deuces, all you're going to see is the back of my head when I'm riding out of town, right? Like I want to physically move my body away from this trigger. Okay, so if you're securely attached or you have healed secure attachment, you've developed that over time through healing, it's going to look a little bit different than if you're insecurely attached. Insecure attachment and withdrawal tends to line up with avoidant attachment, right? Because that avoidance is high and that just lines up pretty well with withdrawing. If you're disorganized, you can pursue or withdraw or sometimes do both. Everybody does both, pursues and withdraws, but there's usually like a preferred way that your nervous system regulates. And so you'll tend to pursue more than you withdraw. I'm like 51% pursuer, 49% withdrawer. And I withdrew in my family of origin growing up, but I pursue in this relationship. So it's interesting. So with withdrawal, the message that you get, the story you get, remember, is I'm okay, but I'm not sure about the rest of y'all. And it is my responsibility. I can only count on myself. And so what I'm going to do is make sure I manage everything in my life to keep my anxiety down. No drama, dismissing my own experiences. So when you start to feel that heat in your body and that sort of thing, you instantly sort of push it out of your mind's eye. Right? So it isn't just that you're not going to others with what you're feeling. You don't even come to yourself with them. So the difference here would be if you're truly insecurely attached, avoidantly attached, you lose your connection to your own emotion. And you stop being able to really understanding like what's really happening inside. You can't really name it. You're not really sure. You get all of your feeling from external things, from sports or from games or from sex or from working really hard, tasks, task completion, checking off lists. Those are where you get like your dopamine hits and serotonin and stuff. And occasionally from physical proximity. Can't tell you how many people I work with who are avoidantly attached and don't like to do emotion and will say it out loud, but really love sex. Sex is emotion. That's your feeling. That's why you like it. You know, you like to eat that sandwich. That's emotion. You do emotion. You just don't know what the hell you're doing. You don't know that's what it is. Yeah. If you're securely attached, but you tend to withdraw, a lot of times it's a little bit different. So it's the same seesaw thing on the inside. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want me to keep talking?
No, I love it. You're on a roll, girl.
Okay.
What do you think?
So just the same way. So let's go back to that example. Chris is huffed out, and I say, hey, I heard that breath. He is already triggered, by the way. When I go, hey,
yep,
we're off to the races, right? So what happens in your nervous system typically now? Like if I say, hey, I need to talk to you about something.
So what you were mentioning a minute ago or so was that oftentimes for withdrawers, they feel, I'll use me, I feel I'm okay right now. I am managing things in my head the way that I need to stay okay. Now I've got this external stimulus that's coming in and going, hey.
What happens to the anxiety?
So then my anxiety shoots up of like, uh-oh, what did I do wrong? Or what's going on here?
Did you hear how fast? Oh, I've blown it in some way. I've messed up.
She said one word before the rest of the sentence. I've already interpreted that based on our history, based on my experiences. When I hear, hey, I think, crap.
It's like the feeling of being called to the principal's office. Mm-hmm. Or if you had a parent that only used your name for discipline and punishment. Right. Or like first and last named you and you're like, uh-oh. It's that, uh-oh, there's no way to get out of this. Yeah. Chris will be like, did she see me yet? You know, I'm like, we're right here.
Right.
But that nervous system is real. Again, I could say it like, hey... Can we talk about a little thing? And it's not about tone. Yeah. Because the truth is, it's not my behavior all by itself that's triggering him. It's because when I have brought things up, and not just me, but throughout a lifetime, when people bring things up and want to address things, it usually means that something bad has happened, he's in trouble, you know, that sort of thing. If you are a withdrawer, it's that feeling of I'm never going to get it right. Like, I don't even know what I'm trying to shoot for, but I know I'm not going to make it. And because you don't have necessarily a good sense of what's happening inside you, when you get triggered, you look right to your partner, and then you go in your head and try to think, okay, was it this or this or this or this? Or it could be your defenses go right up. Like, I didn't breathe out. I don't know what you're talking about.
What?
Like, anything to try and get away from the trigger.
To try to bring that anxiety level back down to wherever we feel is normal.
Yep. Yeah. So you may physically walk out of the conversation. You may not text people back. You might not answer a phone call. You know, you might regulate yourself by instead getting in your car and driving away or going on a walk. Or you may physically stay in person and just pull your emotions back. Right? So the way that I've seen this, I've watched this happen in session. People will be sitting there having a conversation, and then there's just a shift, and the withdrawer is physically there, but stone. We call that stonewalling. Just non-response. Like, I'm here physically, but you can't get me. You can't get in here to get to me. Do you see how brilliant of a protective strategy that is too? Right? It's like a freeze response once it gets to that point. And so we're not going to demonize Stonewalling or some of the other things. Like, it's a protective strategy like any other thing is. Contempt is a protective strategy. Pursuing is a protective strategy. So we just get curious. What just happened? What was the message you just got that popped your defenses up even more? Yeah. You know, if you're bringing all this gunfire to this fight, then you must feel like you're in a lot of danger here. And that's what it is for both people. There's a threat. Okay, and so when you're threatened, do you tend to want to move toward the other person and address it, talk it out, resolve it, problem solve? Or do you want to kind of move back and hope it, like, maybe if we don't talk about it, it will just blow over and things will be okay again? Or I'm going to just say what I need to say. Sometimes people pleasing is actually withdrawal, right? Because you're not actually advocating for yourself. You're just wanting it to go away as soon as possible. If you just want to reduce the heat as fast as possible, that's probably more of a withdrawer type move.
Yeah.
Is everybody with me?
Well done. Well said.
Making sense?
Yeah.
So just think about, do I turn the volume up or am I trying to mute everything? Like, shh, calm down. Are you trying to calm everything down or are you trying to resolve things? Pursuers often also care about proximity and closeness and want to feel connected. So that's a really big deal. You might notice that, like, you're sensitive to closeness and distance between you and others. If you're more of a withdrawer, you're going to go for a sense of peace and calm. So it's not as much about closeness as it is about felt safety in your body.
Yeah.
What do you want to add? Because that's what I got. That's what I got today.
I just wanted to reiterate something that you were saying on the pursuer side and just equated on the withdrawer side, is that both, remember the Viktor Frankl quote from earlier that she said that between stimulus and response, there's a space. And this space, only 0.6 of a second long, is how we decide on how we're going to react. And so both pursuers and withdrawers can choose how they're going to enter into that, whether they are critical, whether they are blaming, whether they are accepting, whether they take in the information. And so oftentimes it is not the stimulus that causes the fighting, causes the issue. And I would even equate this. There was a question earlier on Instagram about how about pushy parents? This could fall into this as well. It sounds like if you're describing a pushy parent, that maybe what you're saying is a parent are pursuing when you want to withdraw and protect yourself. So how they come to the table allows us to have the response.
Right. Pursuers reduce anxiety by telling you what to do. Mm-hmm. Right? Like controlling your behavior, because if you would just do X, Y, and Z, I would feel better. So I'm trying to regulate myself by telling you what to do. But withdrawers do a really similar thing. I'm trying to regulate my experience by disconnecting from you, disengaging from myself and from you.
Yeah.
It's just two very different ways, and one's not better than the other.
No.
One is not better than the other. They're just different.
It's just
different.
how we deal.
Yeah.
So, as we move through our relationships, it's important to know how we show up. Sometimes when we start to see a client in a therapy room, it's just helping them to recognize what is already there. And oftentimes when we say it out loud, they go, yeah, well, I know that I do that. We're just bringing it to light. And so that's what we hope that this is, a bit of psychoeducation, psychological education to teach us, or psychology education, just to teach you where things go, so that when you start to feel it coming on in your relationships, you're like, oh, I feel them pursuing me, or I feel them withdrawing away from me. And so we can look at it as like, it isn't evil versus evil, like this battle.
There's no bad guys.
It is just how we are trying to protect ourselves when these things start to raise.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I do find that I was able to have more compassion for myself and Chris when we started working through this. And I have so much compassion for my clients. It's not just a reframe. This is the truth. Like, this is, well, it's the truth to me. It is a way to look at human interaction that is non-pathologizing and loving, and ultimately offers a way to heal in a way that is not going to put you in a box or try and contain you in some sort of way. And certainly not identify you as, messing up and doing something wrong. There's just a different way to relate to each other that's going to feel so much better, because you do actually need to be able to reduce the pressure. So we'll talk about that. How do you actually reduce the pressure in a way that isn't pursuing or withdrawing, that isn't with your protective strategy there? And you will know the answer to this because you've all done it. Everybody has secure interactions, no matter how insecurely attached you are. It's just looking for them and finding them, and then knowing what it feels like in your body to do that.
So go today. Continue to check in with yourself. If you're joining us a little later, we did our check-in that we do every day. Go ahead and just think through that. Think through why you're feeling like you are. And also within the interaction of your relationships, just pay attention to it. It's amazing once you get this knowledge of just kind of sitting back and going like, wow, it is just kind of this cycle that repeats itself over and over again in this relationship, the same way that it has the whole time that we've been together, or the whole time that I've known them, or the whole time that I've been in this family system. Like, it's the same way that we've always come to the table of dealing with conflict. So it's interesting to know. We hope this has been helpful for you. If this has been helpful for you, awesome. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for the summing up of what we're saying and putting it in the chat. That makes me so happy. If you know somebody else that would get a lot out of this, please just let them know. We're here Monday through Friday, every day, 7-ish, somewhere between 7 and 7:05, 7:10, something like that, depending on if the dog needs to go to the bathroom right before we go live.
Usually.
But go take care of yourself today. You've got this.
Love
we hope
you.
that you're enjoying it. We'll see you again tomorrow.
See you in the morning.
Enjoy your
Bye,
Thursday.
friends.
Bye, everybody.